What's up, Dirty Birds fans? Welcome into this at-home edition of Falcons Today by Chat Sports. My name is Moose. Woke up not feeling the greatest today, so decided to work from home. My wife got done being sick like 3 days ago. I woke up today feeling a little sluggish, a little sore throat, a little stuffy nose. But trust me, I'm committed to the grind. I'm committed to getting better, and I've got my Zycam and my emergency on deck ready to go so that I can get back into the studio. If you could do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up icon, hit that subscribe button for the very latest and greatest surrounding the Dirty Birds. It's a very exciting time to be an Atlanta Falcons fan. And even more so now that we found out what happened with Kirk Cousins and what his contract details have kind of entailed over the last 24 hours. So on today's episode, we're going to touch on Kirk. We're going to touch on Penix, the quarterback situation in general. And then at the very end, we'll talk about the coaching. A little reprieve here from some coaching news and rumors while we talk about the quarterback situation. I'm not afraid to admit that I got the Kirk situation completely wrong. Like, I completely misjudged what the restructuring of his contract meant. So originally I had thought that Kirk Cousins was making a plan to come back by his restructuring, and I was way off. After doing more homework and going back and rereading some things and kind of thinking about it in general, I'm not afraid to admit that I completely misjudged the situation. And that's part of the landscape of being a YouTuber. I don't know everything. And sometimes I'm wrong. And I read your comments, and you guys do tell me when I'm wrong. Some of you a little bit nicer than others, but I'm not afraid to admit that I made a mistake. So let's talk about what this actually means for the Atlanta Falcons. And I took down some notes that I want to make sure I read off to you guys so that we kind of can go through step by step what this is going to look like for the Dirty Birds. Kirk Cousins restructured his deal down to a $2.1 million salary in 2026, pushing all of the money that we would have owed him this year into 2027, where he'll have $67.9 million in 2027. Now, that's good for both Kirk and it's good for the Atlanta Falcons. Why? It clears up cap space if you're designating him as a post-June 1st cut by March 13th. Why is March 13th significant? That's the last day of NFL free agency. So that tells me the Falcons are gearing up to make an aggressive push in free agency with a new head coach, whoever that may be, a new president of football operations, and GM. So all of this is kind of mutually beneficial. Kirk gets his money, albeit in 2027, and he can explore free agency with a new team at a reasonable price, and the Atlanta Falcons clear up some cap space for that 2026 salary for the first 2 days of free agency. It's also significant because now you can go out and re-sign players like Kyle Pitts or David Onyemata or Caden Ellis if you so choose to. Or you can make an aggressive push for another free agent somewhere else, maybe like George Pickens or something like that. I'm just throwing a name out there. Obviously, George Pickens has some attitude concerns, so not entirely sure where the free agency is going to lead us. I'll make some videos about some free agent targets as we get further on in the coaching search. But Kirk is most likely gone. And that's what this move signifies. Why is that significant, though, for this new coach and for Michael Penix Jr.? Well, I think the reason that it's significant for Michael Penix Jr. is obviously now you don't have the Kirk Cousins coming back question looming over your shoulder. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that Michael Penix Jr. is going to be your starting quarterback week one. As we know, his ACL injury is designating him to return at the very earliest in August. So he'll miss training camp, at least the on-the-field portion of it. He could come back and find his training camp in preseason, I guess. But sometimes I kind of look at that and I go, I don't know right now. Now, we're going to touch on the quarterback situation here in just a moment and kind of what the free agency class looks like for these quarterbacks and then the draft class as well. Both are weak classes, weak NFL free agent quarterback class and weak NFL draft quarterback class. So maybe the stars are aligning that Michael Penix Jr. will get another shot. Although if a new coach comes in, whoever that is, especially if it's an offensive guy, you might not see that coach hitch his wagon to Michael Penix Jr. Now, before we touch on that, I have to give a quick little thank you to our friends over at Factor who make these at-home videos possible. If you got some New Year's and some big goals and still no time to cook, Factor makes it easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs so that you can eat well without the shopping or the cooking. Choose from 100 rotating meals each week, including options with high protein, calorie-smart Mediterranean diet options, GLP-1 support, and ready-to-eat salads. Plus, they've got this new Muscle Pro collection that supports strength and recovery. And trust me, I could use all the recovery I could get right now. You get quality functional ingredients, including lean proteins, colorful veggies, and whole food ingredients and healthy fats. So do me a favor. Head to factormeals.com/FalconsChat50 off and use code FalconsChat50 off to get 50% off your first Factor box. Plus, you get free breakfast for 1 year. Offer is only valid, by the way, for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Make healthier eating easy with our friends at Factor. I'm going to have that in the comments and description of today's video. So, let's talk quarterbacks again. Michael Penix Jr., not designated to come back until August. I think it's pretty reasonably assumed the Falcons are either going to A, go after a quarterback like Malik Willis in free agency, Mac Jones if they could trade for him, or they're going to draft a quarterback. Because here's what you can't do. If Kirk Cousins is not coming back, right? If Kirk is going to explore free agency with another team, you've got injured Michael Penix Jr. and Easton Stick. You have to get a quarterback. There will be a new face on the Atlanta Falcons at quarterback in 2026. Mark my words. I just don't know who that's going to be yet. So you could go out and get the guy like Malik Willis, and maybe someone is willing to see what he did in Green Bay and just kind of make his, pave his way in a shorter term deal, a 2-year contract, kind of like the Justin Fields deal in New York, where it's 2 years, $40 million. Right? It's $20 million a year. Very cheap still for a quarterback. Good enough for Malik Willis, who gets a nice little payday. And maybe you name him the starter for week 1 if Penix is not ready to go. Or you can bypass all of that. Sign a player like Joe Flacco or Jameis Winston or anybody to be your backup and then draft a quarterback on day 2 or day 3. Now, remember, the Falcons do not have a first-round pick. We use that on James Pierce Jr., who's looking excellent. So who are some of the day 2 quarterbacks? And if you are going to draft a quarterback, you probably want to draft day 2. You probably want to draft day 2 in the second or the third, because as you get further and further along in a weak draft class for quarterbacks, the talent is even more few and far between. Very, very spread thin. So some of the guys that you could end up going with on day 2 are Carson Beck, John Mateer, Drew Aller, maybe Garrett Nussmeier, but he's more like a day 3 guy. Either way, you're probably going to have to choose between one of those 3 guys. Now, again, this is not a case where any one of those guys is ready to start day 1, but if it is Clint Kubiak, if it is John Harbaugh with Todd Monken, they're going to be thrilled at the prospect of working with someone who's young and ascending and has a ton of room to grow, especially if that's Clint Kubiak. I mean, you could just see them licking their chops to draft a new quarterback. And that's where I'm going to kind of take the next part of this episode, is talk a little bit about the coaching at the very end of this. So to me, what this all signifies here is the Falcons want somebody in this role at the head coaching position that can utilize the talent that's already there, but also kind of flip the whole Kirk Cousins situation and act like it never happened. This is exactly what the Denver Broncos did, by the way, who I also cover. When Sean Payton came in, worked 1 year with Russell Wilson, got rid of him. his contract is still on the books, but then they go out and draft Bo Nix, and boom, they're at the top of the AFC. The Falcons have the opportunity to do this exact thing. So you can have the Kirk Cousins contract still on the books in 2027. But if you go out and nail your draft pick at the quarterback position with the right head coach, Harbaugh or Clint Kubiak, who we all believe is the smart, offensive guru, then none of this matters. None of the Kirk stuff matters. And Michael Penix Jr. either A, turns it around, or B, is an afterthought, if that makes sense. So there are a lot of different possibilities here for the Falcons, all of which are good because we hit rock bottom. Now we're ascending up. And that's the good stuff. I still think John Harbaugh would be the best possible scenario here. I mean, we're talking about a future Hall of Fame head coach. I know there's a lot of people that were in the comments yesterday that were saying the lack of playoff success. Guys, the Falcons have not made the playoffs in 8 straight years. Getting back to the playoffs every single year sounds pretty damn good to me. I mean, we cannot afford to be picky and choosy right now and nitpicky about what kind of playoff success a coach has had. I mean, hell, we all say Clint Kubiak is the next best thing. He's never head coached, right? Like, this is his opportunity now to jump into the reins and show what he's made of. We still have no idea. John Harbaugh is 18 years as the Baltimore Ravens head coach and success in that area. So I'm not going to sit here and act all high and mighty on my high horse and say, well, the lack of playoff success here. Stop. John Harbaugh is the best head coach in this cycle, and it isn't even close. It's not close. But why the Falcons? Why would Harbaugh choose the Falcons? Plenty of reasons. Winnable division. You're not tied to a previous GM. Terry Fontenot's out of the building. You're going to get a new president of football operations. You're going to get a new GM. You bring in your own staff. One of the biggest reasons that Harbaugh and the Ravens parted ways was because Harbaugh said, I'm not moving off of Todd Monken. Well, Monken's got ties to the University of Georgia. So this could be a full circle moment here for the Dirty Birds to go get a guy that has the ability to coach a guy like Bijan, Drake London, this defense that just broke the franchise record for sacks in a single season. And still, you could keep Jeff Ulbrich, maybe. I don't think for a moment that John Harbaugh has no interest in the Falcons' job. Now, there were a couple of reports that did come out, and those reports indicated that he is interested in the New York Giants job as well. Well, you kind of expected that. Look at the brand, right? But what's the main reason that he would take the job with the Falcons over the Giants? Because the Giants are a bigger brand than the Falcons. Joe Schoen is still the GM in New York, and he is a lunatic. I mean, everybody in New York wants that guy gone, and he's still there. He's staying. Harbaugh would get a new GM, a new president of football operations, can bring in his own staff, and has a shit ton of talent at this level and at this juncture with this team. Makes perfect sense to me. I mean, 2 + 2 is 4, guys, right? So I think there is a world in which Arthur Blank has already been on the phone and said, name your price. $15 million a year, come on over. Come on over. I mean, look, Ben Johnson got $13 million a year or $14 million a year with the Chicago Bears. Just write him a blank check, no pun intended. Just say, name your price as long as you're not the highest paid head coach, right? Because like Andy Reid and Sean Payton are upwards of 18 and 17 million. I would say 15 million is right about where I would offer him. Offer him $15 million a year or whatever he was making in Baltimore, and then say, have at it, my friend. It's your team now. This is, of course, why you subscribe. I'm going to bring you the latest and greatest surrounding the Dirty Birds, even on my days off. Remember to, again, like I said, subscribe, like the video. And as always, Falcons fans, as I try to make sure that everything looks good on my end here, I'm going to be back a little bit later on today with some more news and rumors surrounding the Dirty Birds. Rise up and be cool.